What's your sign? What's your sign, baby? What's your sign? What's your sign?
Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
I'm Lisa Chanou.
And today's guest honestly needs no introduction, but of course we're going to give her one anyways. We're so excited to have her here. She is the name in astrology, I would say. You might know her from her app, the CHANI app, author, astrologer, podcaster. Please give it up for the one and only CHANI NICHOLAS.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a joy
Of
to be
course.
here.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Dream come true.
Yes.
Longtime fan. I mean, you're probably one of the first people I followed cultishly, regularly. So I did want to share that you helped me get laid one time.
Oh,
I did
great.
I was,
Yeah.
very serious flirtation back and forth with a Scorpio, of course, in 2016, where we're just sending your here's for your rising, the newsletter passages and highlighting sentences that were horny for each other. So anyways,
Yeah, amazing.
You've helped me in many ways. But
I can retire now.
Yes. We'll get
feel free to use that as a blurb on any next promotional thing. We'll get you laid.
I've been in a lot of coupling counseling sessions. I've been in individual therapy sessions. I've been in many DM, I think.
Mm-hmm.
On the app, so it's all a blessing.
That is something that is so interesting to me, I guess, especially now in the kind of current environment that we find astrology in, where there are still people who are skeptical. And I do feel like if we just had I know this is not necessarily good for astrology writ large, but if it just was hey, it will help get you laid, I do feel like we could get more people on board. And it's true.
I thought I think the 70s kind of functioned like that.
That's true.
Which is, I think, the name of your podcast.
Yes, exactly.
It's all a 360.
I think when you said that you'd been in a lot of couples counseling sessions, I kind of pictured you in the room. And I think that would be fun for an astrologer to have to go into a counseling session and kind of reframe oh no, actually this person's a Gemini Mercury, so we're gonna let them finish talking, or you know what I mean, just.
I would offer the exact opposite.
You would
cut them off. At some point. It's just gonna go on forever. But yes,
I thought we'd just let them get it out, not necessarily.
It'll never end. There's no getting it out. There's just another way to think about it.
Hey, that's my natal placement, and you're right. And also Gemini Mercury's can be cut off too. I think that if you go can we put a pin? It's sure. Can we return to the pin? Yeah. Oh, great. It's just
squirrel.
Yeah. Or I'll forget. It's fine. We'll move through, but no, that's amazing. We had just off top for your background, one of our Patreon listeners, Velvet Lux, had a question that we usually ask folks, but I wanted to shout out their question just of what OG intro to your life, what led you beyond the sun sign? I'm curious, was there a planet that you first bonded with? I feel like it's how everyone has a favorite dinosaur or something, you just kind of move on to oh, I like this thing. Yeah. I'm curious, what was your maybe next planet? And maybe, I don't know if it's obviously the moon, but, or, we call sun and moon planets, but yeah, I'm curious what brought you beyond the sun to start.
That's such a good question. I don't know if I was ever fixated on sun signs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I started studying astrology pretty youngish. So it was, I don't remember thinking about it in terms of sun sign, I guess. I'm sure I did, but I don't remember conceptualizing it like that. As soon as I started to formally learn about it, I was trying to understand the whole chart and the bizarre, weird puzzle that is. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty obsessed with sun, moon, rising and the ways in which they went together and what it all meant and how it gave you a complete picture.
Mm-hmm.
And the ways in which I because I learned the first astrology reading I had was with me and my dad and his newest wife and her kids. And the astrologer gave us all readings. And so
Oh, like
I
a
was
group
really,
family reading?
yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I was 12 years old, and it was like my dad's third marriage. And so I was, I was used to different family iterations, but it's still like a hard thing to do when you're young. I think probably anytime, but it was really good for me to like know why we were different. At 12, you're trying to figure out like, who am I? And you're just coming in to understand that you've got power. It's why we all get like a little witchy, or like we want to know about superpowers or like superheroes or whatever at that age. And I was really fascinated at the astrologer's ability to be able to like so specifically parse us all out and tell me why we were so different. And I understood what she was talking about. And everyone else was like, oh, it's cool, but like it didn't really stick with anybody. And I was obsessed. And she had written a book, and my dad got it for me. And that was my first astrology book, because I didn't have the internet growing up. So I couldn't just look shit up. You had to get the literal physical books, and they weren't readily available. You had to like, and that stepmom's mom was a Reiki master. She's the one who got us the astrology reading, and she had a library of astrology books. So I would go over there, and she's actually the person who brought me to my first astrology lesson, which was when I was like 19, 20. And so I did like a whole series of classes with her. And I just remember sitting in this room with people in their like 40s and 50s and 60s, and nobody understood what the fuck this woman was talking about. And I was the only one who was like, oh yeah, that's because Mercury is blah, blah, blah. And so it was just this thing that I gravitated to so quickly. And you asked me like what planets. It's not that I'm obsessed with this planet, but I did start to get visited by planets in my dreams really young. So I'd go out to the planets, and they'd teach me about what they were doing. So
you'd like astro project to them, kind of?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you fly in your dreams?
No.
Okay.
I've
yet to fly either, but
yeah, like 99% of the time I am like worried. I forgot my pants. I'm driving in the wrong direction. I just like drank something that was like, you just like, it's not good in my dreams. My wife will dream that she like, is hanging out with Obama and playing basketball.
Oh my
God. And like he brings her to like a conglomeration of people that are like the most powerful people, and they give her a standing ovation because she makes this amazing speech. And like that's her dream life. My dream life is like, I was babysitting a raccoon and it got away from me, and just like absolute nothing, just my nervousness.
And sometimes that's on planet Mars.
Yes. And then once in a while I get visited by planets, and they like tell me things, and like, I have these big, huge dreams, but mostly it's just my own anxiety.
That's so cool.
I feel like what you said about the astrologer in your family, it's like there is that like couples counselor astrologer person that came, and that, I mean, the only time I've ever seen something like that is like on Real Housewives, which it doesn't tend to be like the same experience of like making you understand yourself or get closer together. But that's an interesting idea for practice.
Well, it's so interesting hearing you talk about your experience with that, because I do think so many people, again, I don't know why this is where my brain is today, but that one of the like dismissals of astrology is people go like, oh, you're saying everyone is the same. And yet if you get a reading, or if you are, I don't know, really listening, I would say it's so obvious that it's telling people how we're different and how we share certain, cognitive processes and things like this, but that everybody has a unique way of approaching it. And what do you think? I don't know, maybe this is like a human nature question too, but like, what do you think makes someone more receptive to hearing the like differences versus not, I guess?
I guess it depends on what you come into the conversation with. Like if you are critically thinking and you're able to like understand what the astrologer's saying, as opposed to if you're coming in with a preconceived notion that it's all like bullshit.
Yeah.
But it also really depends on how the astrologer or the person is approaching it, because there's a lot of conversations that I hear about astrology that I'm like, Yeah.
Sure.
no. I understand why people think this is awful.
Yes,
It's okay.
fair,
It's all
fair
good.
enough.
But it's like, I don't know. I can't vouch for everything every astrologer says.
And
Yes.
sometimes the people with the preconceived notion, like they do want to be changed. They do come in open, and sometimes, I mean, not most of the time they don't. Most of the time they're, straight white men challenging women in bars or whatever. But sometimes you
I
get
don't
someone
know.
that
I
has
don't talk to a lot of those people.
good. That's good.
Yes.
I live in a bit of a bubble, but
But I feel like there are people that have an open mind. Like I feel like my mom or someone who would be like, "Oh, it's interesting. Like I want to,
Mhm.
I want to hear it. It's not like something I'm
yeah.
like super versed in or whatever." But
Yeah.
I think that comes back to even you mentioning like not initially thinking of your sun sign as the sun because it was called star signs, and until we started even differentiating that there's other players involved. And I think a lot of times we do hear, oh, wait, like the planets like NASA, like the things that are up in the sky. And it's like, yes, like literally the things that are up in the sky. I'm curious because we're recording in between the eclipses. We have the full moon lunar eclipse coming up on Saturday. It's been a time. I hope everyone's okay right
No
now.
one's okay.
I know.
No one
It's
is
like,
okay.
no,
The
it's
world
okay.
is not okay. It's not okay.
I'm curious as we like shift from the Taurus Scorpio, like we're closing up Taurus Scorpio stuff for now. Not that it's ever fully closed because Uranus is here, and Jupiter. But as we then move into like this Aries Libra kind of section of our personal lives, our societal lives, I'm curious, just vibe check. Like, it's still like Venus Mars energy, but like what has that been bringing up for you, whether it's personally or societally or beyond?
Well, we've had this extended Venusian trip, right? So since June, Venus went into Leo and then started to enter into its pre-retrograde shadow phase. And then we had Venus stationing retrograde in July. And at the same time, the nodes changed signs. So the South Node went into Libra. And so the South Node, from my perspective, which is more of a traditional astrological perspective, is about an emptying out or a release. So when I was thinking about this and then talking about it with some of the like lead astrologers on the team at the CHANI app, we talked a lot about what we were worried about because that's where you tend to go first. And also what we were, interested in. And it's both, but what concerned us in an extended Venusian, and then so we go from Venus pre-shadow to retrograde to the South Node going into Libra, which is a Venus ruled sign, into eclipse season, which is our two eclipses both ruled by Venus, which is not like, it's rare. It's not, doesn't, it's like that two eclipses back to back in one eclipse season would be ruled by the same planet that just went through a retrograde period. And that planet then goes into its fall, right? So Venus goes from retrograde, like death, rebirth, renewal, into the sign it's in its fall. So it's a signal that pleasure and connection is going to be harder than normal. And then with the South Node in Libra, it's another indication that what is being lost or what is being drained away is Libra in nature, which is about peace and equity and justice and harmony and cohesion and some kind of semblance of like what could bring us back into balance. And so when we were looking at it, it was like, is the peacefulness, is any kind of peace going to be harder to come by? Because on the opposite end of that is the North Node in Aries. And the North Node, from a traditional point of view, is an increase point. It's a point that magnifies and it gets hungry for it. It's the hungry head of the dragon, where the South Node is that tail of the dragon that sweeps everything away. So if what's getting activated and magnified is Aries in nature, that is very individualistic. And Aries is the sign that's ruled by Mars, and Mars is the god of war. So there's this feeling of like a heightened heat and a decrease in what can cool us down. And so that's always, going into this period has been like, how is that going to play out? And I don't think we have to be even very specific about how that's like landing right now. So it is, and then this next eclipse is opposed. It's great because it's a Taurus eclipse and the moon is much happier in Taurus and it's got Jupiter there, which does feel like a protection, but Mars is sitting in opposition to it. And Mars is super powered in Scorpio, but it's a lot of stuff we don't know. It's like Scorpio season is always the secrets, always the stuff. And eclipses tend to cover and uncover. And it's like, what is going on in the shadows? We can just assume that there's just a tremendous amount about whatever subject we're talking about that is hidden from us. And I think that this next eclipse will reveal some stuff, and there's a lot getting revealed, but I think it's really important to always be like, what don't I know about this? What is too tidy? What is too simple? What else could be going on? How could I be being used or manipulated in this situation by the powers that be?
It sounds like the Scorpio, which is very natural, is like asking to investigate further. Like,
yes.
Don't stop at the simple, which is maybe encouraged with Aries, right? Like Aries, for better, I love this about Aries is that they don't read too much into things. A lot of the times it can be that very simple, like moving through it quick exchange that's really like pure and honest and sometimes brutally honest. But yeah, no, I think that's an interesting reminder as we have a lot of Mars vibes afoot of not just taking like the first response that's given to you, and especially if you don't know the full context of everything at play.
Right.
It's like the Desperate Housewives poster where they're all handing the knives behind them when they're like, like greeting at the door. It's like, oh, these housewives might be desperate. Yeah. Very old reference there, but it's coming to mind.
Yeah.
I think Venus craves consensus too, and like having people on the same page and all of that. And so there is like a discomfort level that I think people find when we're not able to know stuff, or we're not able to like be actively aware of everything that's, going on. And that affects like social life and all of those other kind of Venusian things too. And I think especially when we see stuff happen, whether it's astrology in the kind of like broader sense of how long Venus has been in Leo and those things, we sometimes forget to like take it back down to the personal. I think that's something you're really good at, especially in writing your horoscopes and all the things on your app, and like bringing it back to like, don't forget, like this happens in your real life too.
Yeah.
The macro and the micro are all happening at once. And I think that's the fun / frustrating part, I think, for back to like getting people. And I don't know, maybe it's I don't even know if you need to get people on the side of astrology. I feel like if it comes to you, it comes to you. If it doesn't, it will still be here. Like what not, but like what
astrology doesn't care if you like it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But then also what's happening, what we're feeling more in the personal versus what we're just seeing more in the societal. And I feel like the nodes really emphasize the societal.
This kind of moment, like these kind of moments where the personal and the political and the global and like the macro and the micro are so poignantly intersecting in all of our relationships and forcing us to clarify our relationship to the subject itself and to like what are we oriented towards. These moments are like really important. And one of the last times, it's a little bit of a different configuration because Venus was retrograde, I believe, during the eclipse cycle where the uprisings happened. Black Lives Matter uprisings happened in 2020. And so we had like the Venus is no longer in its shadow or retrograde. It's in a different sign that it was in, but it still feels like that compilation where, Lisa, what you said about Venus being about consensus, about peace, about harmony, about what is consensus? Like, what is the cost of harmony? Like, peace and liberation are very different things. And so again, we find ourselves at this intersection of like really needing to understand where we're located in these global, and then because they're very interpersonal and very much about our inner lives as well. These
Yeah,
issues.
you see who people are in a lot of those moments, and despite how much we try to cover it or, not to try to be Libra harmonious and cool and, in the middle and all of those things, like it pops out no matter what.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, one of the other things about Libra and Venus is people pleasing. And so
Mhm.
these moments can really confront us with our need to be liked and our need to please and our need to, all the things. Also, people are like losing their jobs over saying, over giving their point of view about what's happening right now. And so it's like it's not just people pleasing. It's also like literal, like your financial well-being is also at stake.
The
So
rise of fascism is a little frightening.
Yeah.
It's a little concerning.
Giving.
It's giving
Yeah.
Pluto and Aquarius. It's giving all the
Do you think of Pluto and Aquarius as fascist?
no. Well, I think there is a totalitarianism with Aquarius a lot of the
Fixer.
times. Like and we talk, take a shot. We always talk about like Dick Cheney with Aquarianism. It's just like I think Aquarians are really good at getting people on their side, and that's not always the side you're agreeing with, or maybe it is the side you're agreeing with. We see a lot of cult leaders or MLM leaders having a lot of like Aquarian philosophies. Now, I think Pluto can undo a lot of that stuff too. So like, I don't think it's a straight algebraic, like that will happen, but like we're wild if we're not acknowledging that is happening. And
well, I think what's interesting is like the last time that Uranus was in Taurus was when fascism like almost overtook the whole planet, and it's there now again, right? So there's that fixed signness. But the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the American and the French Revolution.
I also think that just the Pluto shifting, I think, is also it's there. I think because I think Pluto Capricorn. I mean, we've seen obviously like Pluto return US stuff, and I think there's plenty of fascism to be held in Pluto Capricorn as well, in the kind of more race to the top way, maybe. But yeah, I think
When
just
that
a shift like of those things becoming uncovered a little bit more and us being more aware of them.
people wanting to hold on to the power that they have at all costs and what that leads to kind of thing, I think is very Pluto Capricorn. And then the looming idea of power being what's the word that I'm looking for? Like spread out redistribution of power, and how the looming idea of that and the clear like desire for that, and with like strikes and all of these kinds of things of people being like, oh no, we are engaging with this, we are asking questions, we are calling to attention how these power structures are set up and how they are inequitable for many people. I think that causes people then to lean into these awful, like, I mean, and things working by design too, but just those kind of last, not to say that it's over and done, but the last power grabs sort of vibes.
Final season of the United States at the very least. If it feels like there does have to be ends, like ceilings can only hit so high, and like housing markets or whatever, like all the things that are in flux. I mean, one of my questions was, for 2024, I'm curious if it feels like astrologically, of course, a bit more of the same of 2023, or is it because we had so many like new shifts of ingresses this year? Or I'm curious, like what's your feelings like looking ahead a bit, because we are coming closer to the end of the year. Thoughts, feelings, excitement, unexcitement for 2024. Is there anything that, I mean, obviously election year isn't that exciting.
There's two things that I'm watching. Well, I really think that Jupiter's movements next year and what Jupiter gets entangled with will be really telling. And Jupiter's a pretty fast moving planet. It goes through a sign a year, so it's not the fastest, it's not the slowest, it's kind of in between, and it expands whatever it's doing. And so it's finishing up its travels through Taurus, and it's going to make a conjunction with Uranus. And the last time that happened was during the like one of the kind of the like symbols of that time was Rosie the Riveter. And so because war was happening, which I'm not saying that that's what's going to go on, but that women entered the workforce in a different way than they had, in that time period. So it does feel like a really experimental, something new is going to happen. I think it will impact labor, like maybe unions, something to go on with. It's happening in a Venusian sign, so we know it's got Venusian kind of themes. So women, femmes, LGBTQ folks, equity, labor, justice, that kind of stuff. But it's, Jupiter's quite positive in a lot of ways, and Uranus likes to fuck things up and change them and enter something totally new. So it does feel like a new, innovative thing is happening in a part of our life that is governing our material resources and realms. So I would love to see, like some kind of new thing come about, or something kind of break through in terms of unions or the labor force, or how we work, or who is working, or kind of labor rights. And then I'm very concerned about Jupiter going into Gemini, because it is the planet that helps us to kind of stabilize through growth and through acceptance and through a sense of like peace. And in Gemini, it's in the sign opposite. It's in one of the signs opposite from its home. And so it will struggle to bring about those things, which is fine. That doesn't mean it's a bad year. But what happens in August is that Mars also goes into Gemini, and Mars and Jupiter make a conjunction, which is, again, fine. It does feel a little bit like the Wild West in terms of communication and getting facts correct, and just everyone, it's like a lot of hot air. It's a lot of mouth. It's like a blowing up of disinformation, feels like, looks like, sounds like. And then they both square Saturn. And so it does seem like that corner of the year, like the July into August, it's going to be dicey. A square to Saturn, like Mars squaring Saturn is always a time of like a crunchy time. It's a time of limits and restrictions and boundaries and like reality checks. Like, no, you can't go there. That's you get like the big stop sign, and you have to reconfigure. But because Jupiter's in the mix and it's all happening in mutable signs, it's like, it feels like a many-headed Hydra kind of situation. Like, it's not just one thing. It is like, oh, these 70 things confront these 70 things. And there's this like kind of plethora of things to contend with. However, I will say at the same time, I think Jupiter squaring Saturn could be really good for our ability to have to stay limited, because Jupiter in Gemini will just go. It'll just like, it'll never stop. It'll just keep talking. It'll keep, spreading the information, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. But Saturn kind of comes along and it gives it some restriction or boundary. But I just think like that's going to be a time of the year that's going to be really tricky. And because we're in an election year, and because August is a point in the election year that's pretty fucking important.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what's going to go on? So what I think we need to do, especially by the spring, as Jupiter gets into Gemini, is we need to learn how to focus very distracted people, including ourselves. So I think my like tagline for the year is like, how do we do focused sprints? Like, don't try to stay focused forever. Stay focused in sprints. Like, that's the Jupiter and Gemini square Saturn and Pisces. Like, okay, this is not going to last for long, but if I've got your attention, let me get you here. And then let's move all of us to this place. Okay. Then we'll, everything will just disperse, and then we'll gather again and we'll move the next piece. And so what do you want to move in an election year? How do you want to move the conversation? How do you want to move people? How do you want to get votes to where, like, how do we get those in these little tiny jogs?
It's all sounded like very like a camp counselor wrangling cats in a way of just like, okay, everyone, and we've been,
I think that's how it's going to feel.
And we've been talking about this more, I think, especially as we, on the global sense with like travel, right? Like I think you said the phrase, like, you won't be able to go to everywhere you want to go to. And, I'm not trying to scare people or anything, but we do have new visas imposed for Americans to travel to Europe. Like which a lot of people don't maybe know about. So if you do have travel next year, make sure to get
Is that real?
Yeah. You have to get a visa for Europe I think it's just EU. I don't know if it's UK. It's like $30. So it's not as extreme as ours for people coming in. But yeah, there's now a new visa. So you do have to plan ahead. You can't just hop over whenever you feel like. And I think that's a bit of a response of the influencer. I can be in the Amalfi Coast tonight, sort of energy, which is that should not probably be, that's a bit.
I think it's good for our humanity. Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Agreed.
Everything.
Yeah, I think we've been hearing that more slow travel and slow, that full, what do you want to get out of this besides the fact that you said that you went there?
Yeah. I think too, with some of those restrictions and stuff, it's learning to value them again. I think, not to go bringing up the past or whatever, but I think we've had such a tough time with people having opposing views on restrictions in the last 3 years and not being able to follow instructions or do the things that, they've clicked I agree to do or whatever the, whatever the thing may be. And so I think at least for me, watching a TikTok of someone on a plane, losing it at a flight attendant, it doesn't make me more aware of how hard that person works. It makes me more, sensitive to going on a plane and making sure that I'm not in the way. Not everybody has that experience when they see that kind of video, but hopefully when we're experiencing restrictions and things, we can find a way not to be triggered by them and to instead embrace some of the softer parts of us.
Also, wanted to fact check really quick. They just postponed it to 2025 3 days ago.
Oh.
So just a fun fact. Gemini, Mercury, and Jupiter here. So I will be very conscious of.
So it's your Jupiter return next year.
Yeah.
Hey.
I
didn't mean to harsh anybody's natal placement.
That's okay.
No,
It's okay.
That's all we do.
It's okay.
By the way,
but it is very specific to the Mars Jupiter Saturn mix.
We're all traumatized from Mars in Gemini
I know, I was
retrograde
gonna
of
say,
last year.
Yeah.
When you said
So,
Mars is back in Gemini, I was like,
amazing
oh, no.
content. Yeah. So the last time
yeah.
Mars was in Gemini was the Twitter meltdown.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Which RIP.
yeah.
Still
but
hanging on
also,
life supports somehow, some way. But
this is to me the Mars side of the eclipses or the movement that we're doing, where it's no, we can't keep going on as is, and so it's going to be chaotic. But also, stuff's got to go, stuff's got to get cut. We got to be engaging.
I mean, the next eclipse season is 2 eclipses ruled by Scorpio or ruled by Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So these 2 are 2 Venusian ones. And the first ones in the spring of next year will
coming in hot.
Mars
and Scorpio. Yeah.
The Mars and the Gemini, Jupiter and Mars squaring Saturn to me also makes me just think of, like you said, election year and debating conversations that happen there. But I think also that reminder from Saturn to kind of stick to your own, I don't want to say stick to your own agenda, because that to me feels too tricky necessarily, but those not letting people get you distracted, not getting caught up in these kinds of back and forth and just playing tit for tat to argue for argument's sake, because I think we can do that, and going no, hey, you're free to do your own research or have your own points, but here's what's important to me. I'm sticking to this. I'm not talking about these other things, or keeping on people saying what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Keeping those things and having it be in Pisces to where it's you're going to have to adjust some to different conversations, but that we do have these Saturnian things that are a through line in our conversations, in those sprints that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a good point. We have become much more savvy online than we were the last time some orange Cheeto Satan ran for president. So we are in a different situation. We do know the misinformation. Not that still most people don't fall for it, but at least we know a good part of the game that we're going into, and it is ruthless and it is cutthroat and it is all out. And so I just want us being people that don't want a dictatorship, to get incredibly strategic and to understand that we are up against an immense amount of people that would love a dictator.
Mhm.
And like, what do we do in the face of that? How are we going to organize? How are we going to be dedicated to the outcome that we want to see? Because it's not going to happen, you know, if our feelings get hurt and we get sidelined all the time, like, or if we need perfection from everybody, like that is not how these motherfuckers win. Like they just go for broke and they do not stop. And when they spent 50 years, 40 years trying to turn over Roe v. Wade, and they fucking did it. And when they realized that that was a backlash, they then decided to go after trans people. And that is working. So they pivot. They know, like they are so committed to winning in the way that they want to win, that we have to be equally as committed to the things that we want. And I'm not sure that we've really spent enough time thinking about how to do that. But this year, I think it
does feel almost like that whack-a-mole, like they're willing to, whatever you say, okay, another thing pops up over here. And so to not be distracted again with like trying to make sense of arguments or do those things, it's to stay focused on what it is that we're trying to do, and defend defend that, not getting again distracted with like, oh, this outrageous what this person said, where it's like, that's what we've come to expect. That
outrage. And
get it. Kind of
they are shameless.
The Jupiter Gemini of it, to go like, they're gonna say whatever they want. There is no philosophical through line that you can consistently count on the same way. So that's not the rules of engagement.
All out supremacy. That is their end game.
Oh, the clowns are at the circus. I'm shocked. Well, the thing that sucks is I feel like the thing that holds power for people that, especially I feel like if you're not everybody, but hopefully if you're of the woo and of astrology, like, you know, we lead with do no harm.
Yep. I think the Venn diagram of woo and the right is
I mean,
there's
the
growing place. I don't assume anything from anybody. I just got to say that for myself.
Yes. If you listen to us, you know, you can unsubscribe. Like, you know, you've heard our point of view. Is like, we want
I'm always shocked at people when they're shocked at me for saying what I believe. And I'm like, what do you think I've been talking about all this time?
Yeah.
But Chani, you got a big ass reach. So you're getting more that you're opening up to even more. On our end, we're still very indie, you know, and like, if you want to find us, you find us.
You'd be surprised. People hear astrology and they just hear what they want to hear from your mouth.
Well, we say
a thing like white supremacy exists, and they're like, how dare you, you know? And you're like, free to unsubscribe, my friends.
Yes, you can go elsewhere.
Yeah.
But my point being is just like, I feel like the good counter defense medicine is people's lives getting better, right? Like so many people are of all belief systems are hurting right now, or like not doing well. And like the medicine is to bring up people's lives to make them feel better and do better. And like conservative playbook is just to like, you know, scapegoat and call out things. And it's like, is there a liberal version? Like, I don't know if do you even play that game of like, I don't know. Like it's because I think real medicine is like helping people, but it's like, there's so much against the wall.
So for me, like the Saturn Pisces stuff that I think that speaks to that a little bit is, you know, obviously seeing all the systems that were already created when they did come for Roe v. Wade, and seeing the way that like not regular people offering to help like with no knowledge, but there are a bunch of places that need to be funded. There are a bunch of like activism groups, law groups that are helping women find safe abortions. Obviously it's not enough. Obviously it's not the way I want things to be, but I think like the Saturn and Pisces nature of it to me is finding those underground, like underworld, unknown ways that people don't necessarily know about that we can support, so that we do have a structure for if things get taken down, if that makes sense.
It's good going back under ground. Or
Not like
it's very,
going
early
underground,
days.
just like, you know, maybe a lesser known organization or something that we can kind of build and have a structure for trans people when their rights get come for, to have a system that somewhere we can go to help.
Listen, the question you ask is like is such an important one. Like, what is the propaganda of love and creativity
Yeah.
and freedom and joy? What does it mean for us to make freedom so indescribably gorgeous and desirable that people would rather that than to fear? And that is like the ultimate question of humanity. And I think that, you know, I do feel like there is something breaking, and I will, you know, there's many systems we can talk about, but patriarchy is related to all of them. And I do feel like, you know, we started off the episode talking about all this Venusian stuff. And, you know, this summer we saw the Great Divorce, and we hear like a lot of straight women being like, why the fuck would I settle for some man? And we know the absolute, like, you know, tragedy it is when people just happen to be heterosexual and that's just it for them. And it's like
the Barbie effect.
Out, and I'm really sorry. And also I think we're coming to a place where we are not, as like a society, willing to just go along with that stuff, because I don't know, women also get to work now, even though we don't make as much money as men and all that kind of stuff, but there's enough leverage here. So really, like, the question is like, how do we help to like invite, how do we be enticing to especially, I don't know, like women that might be married into like all of this big, how do we like make it so fun to divorce ourselves from patriarchy, to dismantle patriarchy, to reinvent the world away from these systems of violence and supremacy, that people are just like willing to, I don't know, give all their money away to all the places they're doing it. But it really is this like serious invitation to like, the freer we live and the more self-expressed we are, and the more we take our rights and our privileges seriously and fully live them out and get to have these like excellent lives, I think the more enticing the more threatening it becomes, but then also the more enticing it also becomes. And we're just in that moment of I think someone earlier was commenting on like Saturn or Pluto in Capricorn being like the last throes of patriarchy, or the dying grasp and gasp of this old system,
the death rattle.
Hopefully, right? Like hopefully that is what it is. And I do feel like there is a collective intelligence that is building, and that just really resists and rejects this old way of being. And there it is possible to have a tipping point. And I think enough of us are on actually the same page. And I think, you know, as horrendous as they are, you know, apps like TikTok and stuff show that, like the level of conversation and nuance and how educated people are, and the ways in which we're able to have these like deeply difficult public conversations is nowhere is like lifetimes away from where it was 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. Like it's phenomenal. So we are making these kind of like big leaps forward. We just need to focus. I think we've got everything we need. We just need to focus our efforts and not tear each other down when things aren't perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. And 2024 is a fucking mess. It's messy. We've got Saturn in Pisces, an immutable sign, Jupiter going into immutable sign, them squaring each other twice next year. It's a mess. That's okay. We can do it in a mess.
But that's so important to name. I feel like coming from so much fixed energy that we've had in these past few years, not just with, you know, the Venusian stuff that we were talking about, but Uranus and Taurus, and having Saturn in Aquarius too for so much, and those Saturn Uranus squares and all these things of us really, I think, wanting things and people and situations to be fixed in a thing, and working really hard to feel like we need to make things fixed in order for them to be taken seriously and to do that. And I think that welcoming in some some more nuance, some flexibility, some
temporary.
mess. Yeah.
You know, mutable
Yeah,
signs are like, this is temporary. I'm in between the seasons. Don't
And
worry
some,
about
like-
it. It's all going to change.
Some we're figuring it out. I don't know. That's a great thing. I didn't think of that. Now that you've said that, let's add that to the equation of what we're building instead of going like, oh, building demolished. You know, now it's going like, oh, I didn't think about, we needed a room like that. We should go back to the drawing board and add that in. That's a great suggestion. And it being a little bit more, I don't know, collaborative. How, and maybe it doesn't, how can we use astrology to help us do this? What is our like role or responsibility? Or do you think it helps, or do you think it is kind of what you said, something that sometimes people you know are on one side? Like, is it maybe too broad and all encompassing to ever be a tool for this, or is it a way that we can, I don't know, thoughts?
I mean, I just think I think it gives a good warning. Like, you know, like I'm using it in the way that I can, so that I know, you know, certain pockets of the year are going to be good for this and challenging for that. And I think what 2024's astrology says to me is like, we have to take every moment that we can't use, everything we can when we can, and to do the things that we can in the moment, because it does feel like a lot of things are going to be coming at us and there's going to be a lot going on. So if I know I'm walking into a windstorm, then I'm going to try to, you know, bring goggles and have things to go over my head and like wear some protective gear to go in. So if astrology speaks to you, you can think of it that way. If it doesn't, just get involved in your local politics and like you make sure, you know, like do the things that you can do to be the human that you want to be in this moment, that needs every single one of us to be an active participant in our communities, both locally and more broadly speaking. And I think we each have a gift to bring to the world, and it's our duty, but also our greatest joy, I think, to bring that out and to do something with it. So if you don't know what your gift is, you know, and astrology calls to you, look at your chart, find something in there that you're like, oh my God, yes, I've always wanted to do that. Do that to the fucking nth degree. Do it all the way home. Like just do it full out and have it be in service of something bigger than yourself. Have it be in service of what you want the world to be. And that will get you there.
Random question.
Yeah.
If you weren't an astrologer, what job would you do?
No barrier to entry. You just get to like go
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
field. You don't have to get schooling or anything like that.
I don't know. I would like, honestly, I would probably have just created something else that I don't know what it is. Like I need to create my own job is what I know I need to do.
Entrepreneurial realm is still there.
Yeah. I was like, I would say like, I would have, if acting would have opened up for me, I would have stayed there, because I like the ability to like, you know, bring stories to life in that way. And I think I do that through the astrology. So
one understanding,
I don't want to be in that industry. So also, I really need to be I'm a horrible employee, is the honest truth. I mean, no one wants to hire me for anything. I need to do the thing I need to do. I'm a nightmare otherwise.
I can see another world where you're like a Meryl Streep level actress, where
oh my God,
there is no, like, you're not a part of the industry necessarily. You are the industry. You know what I mean?
Yes. Whoa. Well, it makes sense too. I think the understanding of like characters and motivations and these kinds of things too is so astrological to me. Or they blend a lot, not always, but I can see where you're drawn to both.
Maybe you could do a reprise of we just all hanging out, watched I don't know if you saw the doc that Chris Brennan reposted of the astrological conference of 1986.
No, I didn't see that.
It's so fascinating, but there's a lot of plays going on during it. They're doing a lot of acting.
Yes. Michael Luton put up a Scorpio musical. So I was like,
every single astrology conference, I believe he does a play.
Oh my God. So maybe something of that realm.
Well, speaking of I guess like gifts and things, and maybe this is too on the spot, but you do have our charts.
I do.
Is there would you be open to looking at each of our charts, and not necessarily a like here's a gift that you have that you should be doing, but I guess in the
Ooh.
context of 2024 and a place where maybe we can all, Stevie has a impending Jupiter return, but just something that would be
Where
a
should
good
the energy
focus,
invest,
yes, where we
maybe?
could put some energy that I think would maybe be in alignment with the things that we're talking about, of like, I don't know, this could be latent, or otherwise you don't know us as well, so you might not know which is which. But sorry, this is my Sag coming out and pregnancy hormones insane.
Oh my God, you're pregnant?
Yes, I am.
Oh, congratulations. How
Thank
far are you?
I'm 8 months. I got
Wow.
yeah, I was like, we're at the end. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
So you can place your bet right now if it's Scorpio or Sag.
Scorpio or Sag, yeah, we'll see.
find out.
Oh my God.
the race is on.
I have a little
Wow.
idea of where your gifts can
I know,
be
I was like, where my
next.
focus might be. No, but I think, and it still, yes, just a focal point, perhaps.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, what are you guys looking forward to in your own charts? You don't need me to tell you. You've got this. Like, what are you like, Stevie? What do you think about your Jupiter return? But you also just had Jupiter go over your Sun and Venus.
I've
It's
had
right
Uranus
there right
on my
now.
ass for some
Yeah.
time now. I'm really
You have
ready.
tons of huge astrology.
2024. I think it's also like Saturn's right on my North Node right now as well. I'm like ready to retreat, learn. Like I want to see. Like I just got back from traveling through Japan. Like I'm ready to just continue
Mm.
being away and seeing things that are new to me. I mean, also Aries moon. Yeah, I'm just, maybe it's because like I'm feeling, I don't know, I'm feeling like very 12th house energy coming up in 2024. I'm feeling like really where like I want to put my like I think like rebranding keeps coming up. I think like what I want to share, because I've always been such an 11th housey open person. Like I feel like very like more like discerning and concerted. And also like I have so much I still want to learn. Like it feels very new chapter. We all got married last year too. So it's like there was like a lot of like momentum and a lot of like still like a lot of big life events. And now like it's like coming out of like a big life events and then into like, and then where do you put the focus? Like, or where do you put your gifts? Or so yeah. I feel like running away into a jungle and learning is like my vibe.
Wait, how old are you right now?
I'm 34.
34. 30. 31.
So you'll be going into
I know,
a
it's like
12th house
you're
year,
going into a
yeah.
12th house year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Has
I
anybody
know.
done a 12th house year yet?
I was like, I'm in it.
We both are.
You're in
Yeah.
a 12th house year?
Not to leave it. Thank you. Thank heavens. But that's why I was like, I'm in a 12th house year, so I absolutely want someone else to tell me what I should be doing or where I'm going, because I do not. I'm in a Mercury ruled 12th house year, and it has been a real a subconscious exploration that probably needed to happen the same way that my literal apartment clean out organization needed to happen. But also feeling like I have maybe undone myself too much and have lost some kind of ideas about who I am, or what I'm good at, or those kinds of things. And so I think that I also, the term like rebrand, unfortunately is coming up for me, but this idea of like, oh, I guess reestablishing what things actually are me and what things maybe were me but now were helpful, but like thank you next. So I think, yeah, but also not wanting to be just thinking about me. You
won't be soon.
I know, that's true. No choice, but
no choice at
And
all.
you get to go into your first house year
with a babe.
Yeah. Totally different.
And I'm in a nodal return as well, and so it feels all very on time.
But not yet.
Not quite
before that. I don't know. And then Lisa, you also are in a 12th house year?
Yeah, I'm only halfway through. So I definitely feel the need to find more direction. That's something I've been working on. I also feel like,
But you're already so 12th housey.
yeah, I do. I did at first. I was really nervous about Pluto moving into Aquarius, but then when we had that little dip, I really enjoyed it. So that's the thing I'm most looking forward to. Because I think it's, in that 10th and ninth area for me. So I feel like, opening up, and yeah, I feel a little bit more comfortable in public spaces and stuff than I think I have in a long time. So I'm ready for that, but I'm also not like under any impression that it's all going to be easy and positive, So we'll see. I don't really know where I'm going. So hopefully, hopefully we figure it out.
Yeah.
I always find 12th house years like where like literally if you have an enemy, it comes to the surface. Like you're like, oh, I didn't know that was actually like any kind of like latent hostility or whatever. And I don't mean to make anybody paranoid, but I've lived it out and I've also seen it. Like, oh, okay, if something that was hidden from you is going on that's detrimental to you, it will tend to come out in a 12th house year. And so if that isn't happening from the outside, then it does happen.
Dang, mine all came last year.
I've had a lot of internal things where I've had to reevaluate them, or like just things that have come up where my mom like will say something and I'm like, I didn't know I got lost in that movie theater. No wonder I've been having dreams about that place for 10 years, or you know what I mean? Just like stuff like that where it's like, oh, I've been kind of like stewing my own, like you're saying, enemy stuff. So
yes,
yeah,
I was gonna say the enemies for sure fits, and it's not necessarily like a direct, not like you said, not like a direct attack necessarily, but I have noticed definitely feeling like, oh, that person, that's like a criticism of me, or like that's a thing, or that's like I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't realize that's the effect that this was having, or that this is what someone was thinking about this situation.
Your own like mental debris becomes really apparent, like your worries and your anxieties and your fears. And so it's a really good year.
Yeah.
Stevie's like, okay, great.
That's why I'm trying to go to the jungle away from all the debris.
I wouldn't go too far though. You don't want to like get too weird. You know what I mean? You don't need too much time alone. But you will have these like pockets of, it's important to have these pockets of isolation, but also solitude. And really, I think I always call like the 12th house like where we meet our dragons and our like inner, and you have to like befriend them or understand how they work. And it's a way of really respecting the things that you fear so that you can, work with them, understand them, know how to not let them get the best of you. But also, you're lunar, it'll be a lunar ruled year for you. And you got such a powerful moon. I mean, it's conjunct your midheaven, it's in Aries. Will be very, we're not having any eclipses too close to it next year, but,
I feel like I'm training for that. Like I'm training for the eclipses to like get closer to my 0-degree midheaven and 2-degree moon. And it was interesting. We've talked about this when Jupiter was in Aries, because of course, so many like horoscopes are like, this is Jupiter in your 10th house. Like you're about to like dominate the world. And I did in many ways, like I had a lot of gifts, but I think and maybe this comes in with these Aries themes that might come up in the next year and a half and some change, was like, oh, cool, I did it. And this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want more of. This is what I'm not. I think also like there was a lot more that Mars cutting and being like, oh, okay, that's what reaching a top or whatever, or a goal feels like. Okay, like let's keep it going. But also I think Tauruses are just getting foundationally rocked by Uranus, but I think in a way that I've just been loving. Like I think we needed to change our minds and like get the rug pulled a little bit and have all these shifts come. So
just be careful what you say, because it's just like my rising, it's very soon. So like just
if you embrace it, it can't hurt you, right? I love the ride of Uranus. It's been so pleasant. I know.
Gone over 3 of your planets, Lisa, so it's not new.
No, I
Yeah.
know, but I always get those ones first, and then the rising one where I'm like, oh, again.
Yeah, Lisa
Hi.
reports to me first, and then it comes towards my teen degrees of Taurus. But
My husband also has the rising a little bit before me, so I kind of watch his life, and then I go like, oh, like don't make that choice,
mhm.
or do.
But I feel like just Saturn and Pisces, man, like Saturn moving out of the Saturn signs, it's just been so different this year. I think the grip's been loosened. What we're working towards all is like, I think, under review. What just feels right, connected with like soul, mind, body, spirit. So I don't know. I think I'm such a Saturn Capricorn rule. Like I trying my son, like I'm like into the structure and like introducing, Uranus and Taurus, shaking up structure, and then Saturn Pisces. That's like, I've never heard of such a thing, has been like a really interesting mind trip. Like my brain just feels so different than even just a year ago.
Chani, is there anything you're looking forward to for yourself for the next year? It could be also if like, you have something you're launching that you want people to know about, or it doesn't have to be super personal if you're like thinking about it.
Gosh, we just launched the Android app. So that was like our big
Congrats.
thing out to the world. Thank you. And then
Green Bubbles
And
Rejoice.
then a podcast, right?
Yeah, Green Bubble people are happy. And then we put out a new podcast, which we put it out with like Venus, Mercury retrograde, and then eclipses. So it's just been like we've been like, wow, we really rocked this timing. Not at all. I think the nature of it's changed. Anyways, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
it's great, and also we were like that. It's hilarious how you can talk about it until you're blue in the face and then still fall for the tricks.
Yeah.
I fall for the astrology every time. But yes, there's a new podcast called Down to Astro. I think we're kind of moved towards doing more historical things about like, this is coming up. It hasn't happened since this time. And that's what happened last time, because trying to keep up with current events. It's we were like, maybe
in
that's
this economy, it's hard.
there's a lot of events to keep up with. So
a lot of events. It's eventing.
Also launching during
yes.
Mercury Venus retrograde is very tech entrepreneurial of you. I feel like everything launches during Mercury retrograde to see what needs to be modified.
Yeah, you get the feedback
only do
quick
the
about what's
Kazee,
working.
Yeah.
What's working
we
and
waited
what's
until
not.
it was direct, but we
Yeah.
started the match anyways. We just launched our holiday store and have like our new astro planner out, and all of our like different candles and stuff that we do with Gifted, which is the survivor entrepreneurship program that comes through my wife's nonprofit, Free From. So our holiday store is up and running, and all that good stuff is going.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Incredible.
We will link all the things.
Thank you.
A question I had. I'm just curious, like what you're into right now, like whether it's like a book, movies, recipe, TV show, ritual, like what's been giving
really
you life
into
right now?
Lentil stews.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yes.
The equinox came, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I need lentils. I think it was just before that. Like all of a sudden I just need lentils and beans, which is not something, I don't know. It's like all of a sudden like a new craving. And so I just made one just before this pot of lentil stew. It's always on the stove now. And like, now the algorithm feeds me all of these like toast and beans with like a creamy sauce of something. And I'm like, save.
Save
Love it.
on a crispy bread, just like a
yes.
Yes.
And so I'm also deeply into sourdough bread, right? I know,
All right.
because everybody got into it in the pandemic, but like there's
now that means you have all the access to all the TikToks that everybody made that people didn't have when they were first getting into it. You got professionals.
But I don't make my sourdough bread. I'm not there yet. I'm sure I'll get there. But but we had a baby. Our little one is like 9.5 months old.
Oh my God.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. So that has been like the biggest change in my life and the biggest joy, and it's so much fun. Julia, I'm so excited. I don't know if do Stevie and Lisa, do you have babies?
No.
Listen, if you want
just
them
a cat,
and you have if you have resources and it's something you want to do, it's like one of the biggest surprises that I've found is that I realized that the women, mostly because the men weren't really home, but the women that I witnessed when I was little that were mothers always seemed like it was a burden because it was. They didn't have partners and they didn't have resources. And so I always felt like parenthood was kind of like a bummer. It looked like a drag. And then doing it, like I'm an old first time mom, and like we waited, a long time. We were together for 9 years before we had our daughter. And it's just so shocking how fucking fun it is.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. That's like that's something that I feel like I have like naively told myself as something where I'm like, I don't know. It does seem, I've also been very fortunate to know many people who have also said this or said some version of this, and obviously said there are, difficulties and things that are hard as well. Of course, goes without saying, but also have extolled the joys and the fun and those sorts of things too. So I'm very happy to hear that. And
it's a total wonder. And so just like, every day she's starting to like dance.
Yes.
So.
Are you using astrology at all in your parenting?
Not yet. Like I do watch how the astrology impacts her and myself, us as a family. But I mean, I know her astrology, and obviously, of course, watching every single minute go by.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, it's going to be this rising sign. And
yes,
we totally thought we knew what rising sign she'd be born with, and we were so wrong.
Yeah.
She was like, "You guys are ridiculous. I'm going to do what I want to do."
Yes.
But you can see it from like day one, just like how, especially the rising sign, because it's so, you really understand. There's this whole thing. I said it on Chris's podcast that I was just on, but like the 12th house being a place of calamity and like, really intense, difficult experiences, because it's literally the sign that comes right before the birth,
before you're born. Yeah.
Because in whole sign houses, the sign of your ascendant is your entire first house. And so no matter what, the 12th house is the sign before your rising sign. And that was all the space that came up before you were born. And so that whole section, it makes sense, whatever house system you use, but like that place is like the place of great unknown and difficulty, because when you get to that point of the labor, you're just like, holy Jesus fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to know the one piece of information that my wife wishes that everyone told her before she gave birth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My therapist said, because after the birth, we were really fucked up because it was birth and we didn't realize how challenging it would be.
Yeah.
Which you might not have this preconceived notion. But my therapist said, you're fighting for your life and for the life of the baby. And my wife was like, I just someone would have said that to me.
Damn.
So go in knowing that it's like you're in battle.
Yeah.
And you're like, I gotta live, and this little one's, and you're just like, God willing, it's easy, and it, happens like this, and it's fine.
It just
like
falls out.
It does.
Some people do. There is a thing called, I forget the exact term, but it's just like baby expulsion, where your body does just like
you
shoot it out,
and then
it just shoots out. So this does happen.
So, it's all possible. And if it's not, that's birth.
Yeah.
And that,
incredible. Thank you.
Initiation.
Thank you. Yes.
I like you bring up the fun of being a parent too, because I was in a reading with someone. We were talking about them possibly getting pregnant, and there's a lot of fifth house transits going on. And like, it's it's funny, but not funny that like, it's like wrapped up in the fifth house of children and creation and art. And, that's usually when people are like, why is kids here? Like, why are kids in this space that seems really about pleasure and fun? It's like, because these used to be results of recreation, and like, whoop, here it is. And I think, like there's just so many generations of us who came up where it's like me, like my mom knew my dad for 6 months, they got married and had me and then get divorced. And like, it's like out of so much duty and like social whatever. And so many people are having kids older or making that more conscious choice. And I think that just rules. And it can be a lot more fun when you get to choose, just like with if you want to have a
Help
baby
it.
or not with
Yeah.
abortion. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Julia, you're also in your like you're moving into you're a little bit from it, but the baby will be part of your Saturn square,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is, for probably for your listeners, a lot of them are probably around the same,
Yeah.
in the age group that you're in. And that Saturn square happens around your mid 30s. And it's a comment on what happened at your Saturn return. And it's that moment of friction to like tease out what exactly you've done since, what is working, what isn't working, what definitive kind of decisions you want to make, and be kind of like another kind of moment of like intensity in your growth, in your maturity, and in your adulthood. So
Yeah.
People call the 7-year itch, similar to those Saturn transits, opposition squares, and returns.
Yeah. I'm ready for it.
yeah.
Well, Jenny, thank you so
Blessings.
much.
Sending you all the energy for it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I think this has been a couple years in the making. So
Yes. Well,
yes.
for having me on and being patient.
But also perfect timing too.
Yes.
Perfect always.
And we're all still here doing our things. No, it was such a so happy to get to spend time with you, and congrats on your new baby. And what Android app, anything else going on in the world of CHANI that people should know about?
I mean, Android app, the holiday store, and the new podcast, and then we'll have new stuff out. In the next year.
I was like
working on it behind the scenes.
I can't imagine that you aren't already following her. But be sure to follow, subscribe, get on the mailing list, all of those things. It's a wealth of knowledge and evocative, wonderful storytelling.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.